The solution here, as we've been saying for 2 years, is to address debt. And he has two choices. He's tried over taxation, it has failed. He's tried over borrowing, it has failed. This year he has borrowed 1.8 trillion. 1.8 trillion, when Parliament only passed 351 billion. All right? This man has only got two choices: to default on this debt, and I say specifically that this debt is illegal and we should be calling it odious. Remove it from our books, remove it from pain that we are facing every day. But he cannot do that.
Why?
Because he is partly responsible. He was in government when this odious debt was taken from 2013. And there are two things that started this process. You see, many people are not understanding that our Constitution 2010 and the Public Finance Management Act brought in financial controls. The Constitution has a whole chapter on public finance management. Now, this is different to economics. This is public finance management. There are many economists who talk, but they do not know public finance management. It is anchored in our laws. It is here in our Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read it, the summation is that these are controls on our money. Because before that, it was very amorphous in something called financial controls and regulations before the new Constitution. These are controls, the do's and don'ts. You can't do this, you can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Very simple. And if you deviate from law, are you not called a criminal?
Mm-hmm.
It's black and white. There's no gray area. So these are controls. And the foundation of the malfeasance of odious debt started in 2013 when the Uhuru Ruto government introduced something called Supplementary 3. It's the first time it has ever happened. Supplementary 2, sorry, not 3. Supplementary 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That budget can have, 1, 2 supplementaries. And in that supplementary 2, they introduced something that has never been done before. New projects. New projects. If you read the article in the Constitution on supplementary, it is purely and simply an extension of money no more than 10% of the original budget. In other words, if you had costed in the budget a project for a road that, let us say, was 100 million shillings,
Yeah.
and you found, because of some circumstances, costs went up, you, as the ministry, presented a proposal to be taken to Parliament in a supplementary to increase the costing of that project of no more than 10%. So 110 million.
Mm-hmm.
That is what the supplementary budget is supposed to be. But here in supplementary 2, they introduce whole new projects, like a whole new budget.
From 0 to 100.
From 0 to 100. Okay? That was the first.
Mm-hmm.
The second, because you must understand intent. The second was that they introduced amendments to the consolidated fund. The consolidated fund in the Constitution says it is the only account that all revenues must be received and expended. One account is called 10,3987. Okay?
That's the account number.
That's the account number. One account.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Constitution is very explicit. And the only other alternative is if they are funds that have been created by Parliament, such as Petroleum Levy Fund.
Yeah.
Right? Which can have other
own
accounts.
account.
Another account. Okay.
Now, what they purported to do, and this bill was presented by the majority leader at the time, a bill sanctioned by the Treasury and the Attorney General at the time. They purported to amend the Constitution on consolidated fund and create in the PFM law an act of Parliament different accounts, different reasons why the Treasury can open different accounts. How do you amend the Constitution?
How did they do
Through
that?
an act of Parliament.
How did they do that?
That's what they did.
So there was a PFM Amendment Act
Yes.
that was taken to Parliament.
Yes.
What did it amend?
It amended that you do not have to have one account under which proceeds are received.
So you can have consolidated A and consolidated B, or
You can have however
whatever
myriad
you
of
want.
accounts.
and
in
none,
fact-
and
in
none
fact,
of
what
them
is
will
so
be
interesting-
consolidated.
It actually said that you can have accounts that go to the extent. I'll give you an example. Disbursements directly to suppliers. In the case of external loans or external government securities, pre-negotiated expenses solely for borrowing. It can be paid to fees, commissions, expenses, financial arrangers directly, managers, book runners, fiscal agents, trustees, paying agents, exchange agents, information agents, syndicated agents, clearing systems, listing agents, stock exchanges, rating agencies, and other expenses. In other words, money does not have to come to the consolidated fund.
It can go to these other accounts.
It
It
can
can
be
just go
paid
to
out.
any paid out how it wants without
Okay.
controller of budget's approval. That's what it means.
Okay.
Because the controller budget deals with the consolidated.
Let me see if I get this right. So what you're saying is before this amendment, there's the account called the Consolidated Fund.
Yes.
And all monies, even if you go and borrow money from China Exim Bank, from AFDB, from the Eurobond, from wherever, World Bank, IMF, it comes here. And then it leaves here to go now to the budgeted
That is the
areas
law.
of expenditure.
That is the law.
And then the amendment said that the money it can be paid out before it gets into the consolidated fund.
Yes.
So we can get money from, let's say, Jimmy WANJIGI and associates, lending money to the government of Kenya through whatever agreement. The money can go into Ndu account and pay supplier Eric
Yes.
without necessarily getting first into the consolidated
Account.
account.
Correct.
I see.
And you know, in the consolidated account, the controller budget, right, oversees the implementation of the budget. So if she is to approve any removal of funds, all right, it has to be a line item on the budget. So they avoided her signature.
Okay, you'll tell us then if you have information on this kind of transaction. So some of these things that were happening then, which led to, for example, amendment to the PFM Act that says you can now make out payments without necessarily having to come through the consolidated fund. What's the effect of that?
Please call it illegal amendments to the Constitution through the PFM Act. Because it's you cannot amend the Constitution through an act of Parliament.
For something to be called unconstitutional, that's a court of law that has done that. Has
But
any
that
court
is-
of law
that is
declared
exactly
this?
what they have done.
What?
Amend that section of Article 206 of the Constitution, which reads as follows. There is established the consolidated fund
Okay.
into which shall be paid all money raised or received by or on behalf of the national government, except that A
Uh-huh.
is reasonably excluded from the fund by an act of parliament and payable to another public fund established for a specific purpose. That is now like petroleum levy fund. Okay? Or B may, under an act of parliament, be retained by the state organ that received it for the purpose of defraying the expenses of a state organ. That's A&E.
Okay.
All right?
Yes.
2 reasons.
Yep.
Now, in 2014, they amended to add in the PFM Act
Uh-huh.
C and D. Remember I said A, B? Then in PFM, they add C and D, which reads as following. Disbursed directly to the suppliers where the loan is a government-to-government loan and is raised for the purpose of financing goods and services provided by a supplier outside Kenya. That becomes C.
Uh-huh.
And D, this is in PFM, take note.
Yep.
And D, in the case of an external loan or external government security applied, in part, to pay at closing pre-negotiated expenses, all right, associated solely and exhaustively with the borrowing, including but not limited to the fees, commissions, expenses of lenders, financial arrangers, managers, book runners, fiscal agents, trustees, paying agents, exchange and information agents, syndicated agents, clearing systems, listing agents, stock exchanges, rating agencies, and other expenses of a similar nature arising from the external loan or external government security.
Okay.
C and D were added
In the amended PFM Act.
in the PFM Act,
Okay.
and they do not exist in the Constitution.
Okay. What was the effect of that?
The effect of that
Yeah.
is that you now avoid the consolidated fund
Okay.
for the receipt of funds
Okay.
and the disbursement of funds.
Okay.
And once you do that, you avoid the budget, because there's no item that can be removed from the consolidated fund that is not in the budget.
I almost
And
hear
the
you say-
budget is
yeah.
the appropriations bill,
Okay.
which is passed by Parliament, which has line items. Okay? This is for salaries. This is for a development project called a road in Kitui. Okay? So on and so forth.
So, Jimmy, I almost hear you saying then that the creation of these accounts outside of the consolidated fund account have been done deliberately in order to avoid whatever kind of budget query would be made on the account if funds were dispersed from it for whatever reason.
It was the foundation of a fraud.
Okay.
This is how you do fraud.
But this is a law in the Republic
What do you mean
of
it's a
Kenya.
law?
Hold on. It's
It is not a law.
It's an act of parliament, Jimmy.
No, it
An
is
act
not
of
a law.
Parliament is law.
I'm sorry. You cannot call an illegal law a law.
Nobody has declared it illegal.
Let me ask.
No competent authority, Jimmy,
No,
has declared
but
it
my
illegal.
friend, my
Let's-
friend,
let's deal.
I have read for you the Constitution of Kenya.
You've read the act
I've read the Constitution of Kenya
and the PFM.
under
Act.
Article 206.
Yes.
That's the Constitution of Kenya.
Yes.
And it says, as I put, one, please understand this. There is established a consolidated fund into which shall be paid all money raised or received by and on behalf of the national government, except A, if there is a fund through an act of parliament, like petroleum levy fund.
Can I go to my question?
B, full stop. A and E.
Can I go,
Right?
Can I go to my question?
Yes.
Okay. So the PFM Act is amended and introduces C and D. Okay. Does the Auditor General have access to C and D? Can the Office of the Auditor General also audit money paid out through C and D, like you read? These are monies that are paid, agents, fees, arrangers. If you've arranged for Kenya to get some financing,
No, that list is
and all so on and so forth. Does the Auditor General have visibility into those payments?
They have no visibility into these payments, but they have visibility into the debt payments commensurate to any of this through the consolidated fund. Because all debt payments are made from the consolidated fund. So you can pay these how you want, but they are booked in the
consolidated-
consolidated fund as a debt. Right? And they are paid out as a debt.
And yet the
So the
monies,
controller of budget
Wait.
should, yes?
the monies received are not registered in
Yes.
the consolidated account.
Yes.
There's an act that brought into being C and D.
Yes.
Now, you say it is illegal.
Yes.
Before we carry on, I just want you to explain, walk us through this thing. Why is it illegal?
Why is what illegal?
The act that enabled, the amendment that enabled C and D to actually exist.
Because you cannot amend the Constitution of Kenya through an act of parliament,
How do you amend the Constitution of Kenya?
through a constitutional amendment, which needs 2/3 of the House to pass.
And we didn't see that happen.
No, they did not do that. What they did was amend the Constitution of Kenya through an act of parliament, which simply needs a majority.
Majority can be one.
Can be one.
So the illegality...
And it does not even have a limitation of how many there. There could have been 40 or 50. What's a quorum? 60 in the House? And that's all they did.
Have a quorum?
Yes, have a quorum and pass it. And have a majority from that quorum. Yes. Whereas with a constitutional amendment, you have to have a constitutional majority in that House. First and foremost, numbers. So, and then you need a majority, 2/3. 2/3 majority to pass it.
And that didn't happen.
That did not happen. So the minute you're adding C and D, where the Constitution stops at B, Constitution only has A and B. How do you add C and D as an extension of the Constitution through Public Finance Management Act? This is criminality of the highest order.
And this was enacted in the...
I can tell you that. And I'll stand up anywhere. And anybody who passed this was part of delivering it is a criminal.
Jimmy, my pushback to you will remain until and unless you go to court.
No, my
and
friend,
the court declares
this is simple logic.
Yeah, it's logic, yes.
It's simple logic.
But there's a way even our constitution says what shall declare something illogical and illegal. And this is a court of law.
There is enough
it has
precedence.
not been,
Eric,
it has not
there
been,
is enough precedence on this.
This law.
This has been attempted
These
in very many things.
of the law have not been declared unconstitutional.
No, yeah,